Hey everyone, welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. 99% of traders will never make consistent profits. So why listen to the 99% of advice? On this show, we're going to challenge some of the most hallowed and repeated tenets of trading, and in doing so, set you up to succeed where others fail. Spoiler alert, we don't have a secret strategy or magic wand that will let you skip out on the hard work of learning the markets, but we can debunk viewpoints that are holding you back. If that sounds good to you, come join us.
Welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. Would you like to trade like Beethoven and Mozart played piano? In today's episode, we're going to be continuing our Would You Like To series, where we're comparing trading to other activities such as golf and poker. And today, we are going to be discussing how trading is like playing the piano. And I could think of no better person to introduce this subject and talk about it as Levi, because Levi is a extraordinarily talented musician playing, and honestly, give him any instrument and within 3 months he will play it at a professional level. So I remember coming back home. I was gone for a few months and I came back. Levi didn't even play the piano before that, and when I showed up after being gone for 3 months, Levi played better than me, who had been playing for probably 6 years. It was a humbling experience, but as such, I think he's an excellent person to have on today to discuss and really take us in depth to how trading is like piano. Levi.
Hey Jordan, well, I can think of a million people to do this better than I can, but at least we can kind of try our best. Yeah. When we're talking about trading and we're trying to find similarities between things that people are a bit more familiar with, piano kind of popped onto our list. We kind of we were going through a few different topics, and piano kind of was on the top there because it has a few things that that really can maybe help people relate a little bit, even if you don't play piano. One of the first things when we're talking about a skill like a piano is that the often over talked about phrase, but very true phrase, is practice makes perfect. And this is true for instruments. This is true for any instrument. This is true for day trading. When you're talking about trying to get good at an instrument, yeah, there are savants. I mean, there are people who, maybe there
Levi.
are people. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, maybe like I'm definitely not a savant at day trading, and like there's people who can sit down at day trading and sit down in front of a chart and within a month or so be just raking in the money. I mean, maybe those people exist, right? I'm not one of those. You're not one of those.
No, but I think they do. I think they do. Yeah, like piano. I spent 6 years practicing piano every single day, and I'm gone for 3 months. You sat down to play piano, tickled the ivories a little bit, and came back, and you could instantly play better than me. And it was, that just some people have a gift, and just like
yeah,
I do think it does. I mean, trading, there are people. Some people are going to take a year to learn how to trade.
I
Some
agree.
people take a long time.
I agree. And so I think it's very easy it's easy to get discouraged. Or you see first of all, in my opinion, the majority of those people who go on, who are on social media and go, oh, I learned in a month and I was making money. All you have to do is follow, buy my course. Most of those guys are just lying, but
99% of them.
Yeah, 99% of them. But there might be some. I mean, there might be somebody who picks it up in a month, but that's not the norm. And it's not necessary to make money. I mean, the when you're applying this to an instrument, my instrument being piano, the instrument that we both play, is that there are people who sit down and they're 3 years, they're the 3-year-old, they're Mozart, they're a child, and they're playing concert piano. But you don't need to be that person to make money and make a good amount of it, because you just need to be in the top. You need to be in the top echelons. Some people might get there earlier and easier than you do, but I guess the question whenever things start getting hard is the question I heard, forget who it was, but he goes, well, did you think this was going to be easy? And of course, everybody goes no, right? Or when you face some challenge, do you think this is going to be easy? No. Well, this is what hard feels like. Hard comes in the form of time and pain and effort. And so day trading is no similar. I keep saying no similar, is no different. It is similar. I said that last podcast. I remember this clearly. I said no similar. I don't know why I'm saying that, but it's no different. And so it takes time and effort. You got to put that time in, just like playing piano or any other instrument.
Yeah, for sure. And what that timing and putting all that time in does is there's two things. One, of course, it gives you muscle memory, and I think we've talked about that, and I beat that one over the head with golf. But another thing when it
Yep.
comes to piano or music in general is what that time gives you is pattern recognition. So when you
Mm,
first start learning an instrument, you'll have one note and you're just going to be playing that one note and you go, okay, that's a G, that's a C, and you start practicing. And then pretty
yep.
soon you can add another note. And let's say you're playing just the right hand. And then you go, okay, I've been playing treble. Now I'm going to play in the bass. And then you add a left hand. And pretty soon you get to the point where you can read two lines of music, both hands at the same time. But that does not come instantly. What it takes hours and hours and usually thousands of hours for you to be able to develop the ability to recognize those patterns and then execute those patterns. And I would also say that it's usually accomplished in real time. So again, this is maybe taking the analogy a bit out of piano realm, but it's still like you can't go back and practice pattern recognition in some way. Like it's easy to go back if you just want to say, okay, I'm going to go back in my music book and I'm going to find all the C, like find all the C scales or whatever you want to do. It's pretty
Mm,
easy to just flip back and go, oh, this there, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. That's great.
mm,
But then try to do that while playing the song. It's
yep.
completely different and honestly near impossible until you get really, really good. Um, and so it's
Agreed.
the same with trading. Like it's easy for us to go back and go, oh, here's this pattern. I've recognized this. It's bouncing off a support, whatever it is, bouncing off support. It broke through resistance, whatever you want to say. It does this. It has a certain appearance. I should have taken this trade. But trying to do that in real time is much, much harder. And that's why, we encourage people, listen, you need to be trading live as soon as possible, even with very small amounts of money, but you need to be trading live because the experience is so much different than trying to go back and do stuff via, even just back testing. And while back testing has its place, there's nothing that's going to replace that real-time practice because it is completely different than just identifying things in a stationary, go back, hit pause, analyze things, don't have any risk type of way.
Hi everyone, Levi here to ask you if you like what you're hearing and haven't already, consider subscribing or dropping a review. We put this information out completely free, and we'll never ask you to buy a course, pay for a Discord, or any of the other garbage you're likely to hear from everybody else. So, if you think we've earned it, we'd be in your debt.
One of the other points that we were talking about, one of the other similarities before we jumped on here was that having a teacher, even the best, won't make you good. So not to at all diss piano teachers, but piano teachers don't do as much as people might think, right? And even a piano teacher, a good piano teacher, probably would agree with this, in that like they'll teach you what a piano teacher does is point you in the correct direction and keeps you on the correct path. What they do is they keep you from developing bad habits, right? So they'll make sure you're holding your fingers correctly, and as time goes on, if you start slipping to bad habits, that they can point that out and correct that. They can recognize, they'll recognize your faults, right? They'll recognize what areas you need to grow in, and so they'll point you into the correct places to practice. Like, hey, you need to practice your scales, or you need to practice whatever, right? They'll point you in the correct direction. What they cannot do is make you good. Like the only way to get good is to practice. Like
Yeah.
it's the only way. And so we've talked about this before, so not to beat a dead horse, but a trading guru or a really expensive course isn't going to make you good. It's just not. Having a really good teacher can point you in the correct direction, but a really good teacher is really hard to come by, especially in the day trading world.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to find a teacher who isn't just going to be like telling you how to do technical analysis, and if you just do this, you'll make money. Like, it's really hard to find a teacher who doesn't do that. So my advice to newer traders is, uh, not to say that there isn't any value in teachers, just recognize they're not going to make you good. And if they're not if their main job as a teacher isn't just kind of pointing you in the correct direction, isn't
They should be called coaches rather than teachers.
yeah, yeah. If their main job is just technical analysis, well, you could have just done that on YouTube. Like, what do you like? It's like if all your teacher did was tell you which notes to hit with which finger. Well, like, you can get a book that has the fingering in. Like, you don't need a teacher to teach you that. Like, you're wasting your money, right? If you're getting a teacher, if you're getting a coach, make sure they're coaching you in the things that are correct. The psychology of it is your coach going back into your journal and going, hey, why'd you take this trade? Did you get some FOMO there? I think you might have gotten some FOMO there, right? You jumped
Yeah.
in after a big move, whatever, right? You didn't wait for your setup that you said you were going to wait for. Like, that's what your coach should be doing. Don't waste money on coaches who aren't coaching you correctly. And that's how the analogy goes to piano. A piano teacher is not doing everything you think. They're very valuable if you find a good one, but only because they're there to kind of help point you in the correct direction. They're no substitute for time and practice.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And I think kind of the last point to close with would be kind of a comparing piano also and like jazz to trading, right? So take Scott Joplin, take some of the famous jazz players. They can play some riffs that if you see them on paper, you go, how in the world does that even work, right? Like if you're reading jazz
Mm-hmm.
music and some of these and you hear some of these, you're like, those notes don't make any sense at all. Yet it sounds great when you hear it in a song. And the only way that they're able to do that is because they have a very deep and fundamental understanding of the basics before they're going into more advanced methods, right?
Yeah, and because of a lot of practice, they're able to, and this is, I think, where it kind of applies to day trading, is that you want to get, that's the goal, right? You want to get to a point where you can essentially play jazz on the market, right? Where when you're first starting, you pick one setup and you have some rules for yourself and you stick to them, right? That's the important part, is learning discipline. When you're first learning piano, right? You're trying to learn the basics, and you want to learn good form and all this stuff. But when you get to, as you grow, you're able to get to these places where these jazz musicians, they can take a note that does not work. It should not work. And they can just make a riff off of it and play gorgeous music. And the hope, the goal of a day trader is get to a moment where you can play jazz on the market. That only comes after you develop discipline. But once you've developed discipline, you can get to that moment. You can get to that moment, and that's where you start really making good money on the market.